Hey everybody, welcome back to the Chaotic Little Book Corner. My name's Acacia. Today we're going to be doing my mid-month wrap-up. This is going to be the wrap-up of the books that I've read so far in the month of September in 2017. These are a fun amount of books. 3 of them are rereads, 4 of them are new to me, and let's dive in from least to most enjoyed. The first book is Norma, and it's by Sophie Oakson, and this was sent to me by Penguin Random House. This is really hard to explain. So Norma is in the beginning at her mother's funeral, and she and her mother were extremely close, and a man comes to the funeral and says, "I was very close to your mother. I want to give you my condolences." And she doesn't know this man, and so she sets out to try and find out who this man was. You follow her as she's exploring that, and you also follow her as she's exploring the knowledge that her mother had and never let her in on about her supernatural hair that changes with her mood and the environment around her. This book was whimsical and interesting and different, and it was translated from the Finnish. I think that the translation would have been, I think I would have benefited from reading it from its original language, because I think there are some whimsical and beautiful ideas that just don't translate into English as well as I would have liked them to. I felt that this book was well done, easy to follow, but was lacking that magical element to it that it so epically promised. I felt as if there was just a misguided translation. And so I really was disappointed in that aspect, and it kind of ruined the whole book for me. I would say that if you like supernatural kind of elements, this is a fun read. It's easy and it's quick. It's definitely got some mystery elements to it as well, if you like that. And I would say that it could be a really great book for someone, but for me, it just was a miss. Then we have Hubert Selby Jr.'s Requiem for a Dream. This book set me on edge the entire time. It was graphic, it was raw, it was unsettling, and it was astoundingly well done. I was uncomfortable from beginning to end. It follows Harry, who is a drug addict, and his mother Sarah, who is addicted to diet pills. And this story perpetuates the two of them and their experience and their choices in life that they make to kind of control their habit. It was really, really off-putting, and the way it is written with very little punctuation and little quotation is so freaky and well done, but really, really startling, and it kind of puts you into this chaotic mindset that might be the same mindset of those who are on a drug and who are addicted to something. And in that way of writing, it was set up so that I felt uncomfortable from start to finish, and I was left really, really numb and really, really shaken by this story. Then we have Shopgirl by Steve Martin. This was a reread for me. This book I had forgotten about until Amy Poole mentioned it on her channel. This story follows Mirabelle, who is a young shopgirl who works in Neiman Marcus in the glove department, which is a very forgotten department and very much ignored by every customer. So Mirabelle is just working in this glove department. She is quite happy with her life in some ways, but in others she is very depressed. She is very, very content with normal and uneventful life. Then she meets Ray Porter, a wealthy gentleman who takes her under his wing and begins to have a romantic relationship with her, but can never fully commit to her, regardless of whether or not he wants to. The two of them have a somewhat somewhat diluted and somewhat harmful relationship with one another, and it is very sad and very melancholy, but very beautifully done. It does not glorify mental illness or try and make her out to be some sort of ethereal other as her depression worsens. It is just really well executed. It talks about medication use and the use of that on a daily basis and how that can affect a person's mind and body. It was really well done, really well executed. I enjoyed it, and I definitely recommend it. Then I was sent this book by Touchstone. This is The History of Bees by Maja Lundy. I will be doing a full in-depth review on this. This is the story of 3 different time periods. So we have England 1852, United States 2007, and China 2098. In England 1852, so we follow William, who is a biologist, and he has set out to try and build a different kind of beehive to help the bees and to kind of give them a more economically friendly environment to live in. And then we follow in 2007 George, who is a bee farmer, and he lives on a farm and he wants his son to take over the family business, but his son has no interest in it and is a vegetarian writer and who just wants to experience his own life. And then we follow Tao, and Tao lives in China 2098, and she is a pollinator now that all the bees have disappeared, and her job is to pollinate the plants to allow for the growth of food. Now, the production of meat has lessened. There is less food to go around. Families are no longer putting their children through school. They are taking the children at the age of 8 to start pollinating. It is a long process and a dystopian world where bees no longer exist, and what happens to the food industry as that collapses without the process of bees and pollination. I thought this book was so well done and really well executed. I definitely think there were elements of it that kind of missed for me. I really enjoyed following Tao as she tries to help her son come of age so that he can have a better life than just being a pollinator. She wants him to be a leader, but then he gets sick and disappears, and she has to try and find her own child, and you follow her in that experience. It was really well done and really well executed. I followed William's story in England the least. It definitely felt the least worked out to me and the least processed. Though I did enjoy it, I just thought it was the least developed. I found that overall I enjoyed this story. I definitely recommend it. I think it is a really important story, and it has a lot of interesting conversation in it about humanity and what we need to do to protect our wildlife of bees and other insects around us, and I think that it's really important and a really interesting view on dystopia. Then, I don't know how much I really need to go into this. This was a reread. This is Donna Tartt, The Secret History. This is a novel, and I loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Loved it as much as the first and second time I read it. I definitely loved it. I think that for me, I've come away with a more overwhelming feeling that the experience of this book is more so based on the Roman and Greek Empire and how people were treated within that world and realm, and this culture that is distorted and then relived and hashed out by these 5 classics students. I think that there is a really dark undertone to it where there is such a brilliance of betrayal and denial and fear and conquest, and I think that it is a really interesting and beautifully developed story. I think that it is highly recommended and definitely one of my favorite books of all time. Then I reread Rebecca with Amanda Center. I forgot to mention that I read Requiem for a Dream with Adam from Memento Mori. I really need to pick up on that, and I need to talk to that boy about it because, oh my gosh. So then I reread Rebecca with Daphne du Maurier. No. So then I reread Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier with Amanda Senter, and I enjoyed it so much more this second time around. I was able to digest it and fully comprehend it and kind of dissect it and really think about how this book was affecting a society and a culture, and how it talked about a character that was an introvert, which was really, really rare, how it talked about a character that is dead and brought them back to life. I found this enlightening and brilliant and completely morbid and dark and dreary. I thought it was a beautiful read to read during September, and I think it's definitely a fall read. The story is following an unnamed main character who is married to a man named Max de Winter, who is the owner of Manderley, and she goes back to Manderley to start to run it as she is the new wife and the new lady of the house, but there is an overwhelming sense of otherness and forgottenness of the past mistress of Manderley named Rebecca, and she is just an overwhelming, powerful force that is haunting all of the people living in Manderley and is controlling a lot, and it is brilliant and beautiful and breathtaking, and I definitely recommend it to anyone who has not read it. Then my latest book I read yesterday in one day, in 2 sittings. This is My Absolute Darling by Gabriel Talent. I did a full in-depth review of it. I will link it down below. This is the story of a young girl named Turtle who has a very messed up relationship with her father. She is trying to come into her own and existence and trying to find her way in the world, but it is really difficult as she is being stifled by her father or masculinity and misogyny. It is brilliant and wonderful, and I really, really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it, and I think that it is one of my favorite books. I know. It is one of my favorite books of the year so far. I definitely say that this is a 5-star read. Alright, so that was my mid-month review, and I will speak to you all in my next video. If you like this video, click the subscribe button and click that like button, and leave comments down below for comments, quandaries, compliments, or concerns, and I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye.